We're talking about a 16-year-old. And we're not talking about an adult. We're talking about a 16-year-old child. She was thrown on the side of the freeway like trash, and she's a child. She meant something to her family.
This morning, a big push to find the person who shot and killed Tioni Theus. LA leaders are expected to approve a reward in the case.
The body of the 16-year-old Compton girl was found dumped along the 110 freeway earlier this month.
January 8, 2022. Morning commuters on the Harbor Freeway in Los Angeles noticed something unusual on the Manchester Avenue on-ramp. As they slow down to look, the horrifying truth becomes clear. It's a body. A teenage girl, thrown away at the side of the road like garbage. This wasn't a random homeless person or an adult caught in criminal activity. This was 16-year-old Tioni Theus, a straight-A student with dreams of becoming a nurse, shot in the neck and dumped without dignity on cold concrete. Her father's words cut deep. Dumped on the freeway like nothing. Who could be so cold like that? Welcome to our channel, where we expose the darkest corners of humanity. If this opening shakes you, drop a comment saying, "Justice for Tioni," because 3 years later, her killer still walks free. What you're about to hear will make you question everything about how our society values young black girls. Why did another murder case that same week get a $250,000 reward, while Tioni's family had to fight for weeks just to get authorities to care? What happened in the final 24 hours of her life that led to such a brutal end? And was this bright teenager secretly being trafficked? The answers will shock you. The system failures will infuriate you, and the truth about who Tioni really was, beyond the headlines and statistics, will break your heart. Stay with me. Tioni deserves to have her story told. Behind the headlines and crime scene photos was a young woman, full of promise. Those who knew Tioni Theus described someone who lit up rooms with her energy. Her cousin Sania remembers, everything made her laugh. She was a bundle of joy, real bubbly and friendly. Even in tough moments, Tioni found reasons to smile. She was always smiling, even when she was crying, Sania recalls. This wasn't just family bias. Tioni's academic record spoke for itself. She maintained straight A's throughout school, showing a natural intelligence that impressed her teachers at Centennial High in Compton. Her mind was sharp, her work ethic strong, and her future looked bright. That future had direction too. Tioni dreamed of becoming a nurse, a goal born from love, not just career ambition. After her mother suffered catastrophic injuries in a hit-and-run accident in 2019, Tioni witnessed firsthand the importance of medical care. She wanted to help others the way nurses helped her mom. She wanted to heal. She was loved, she was appreciated, her Uncle Michael Dolphin said at her funeral. You would not believe the little girl that she was. The family photos tell the story. Tioni with her wide smile, often surrounded by cousins and relatives who formed her support system. Beyond academics, Tioni had diverse interests that showcased her well-rounded personality. She found joy in dance, expressing herself through movement and rhythm. She also played golf, not typically a sport associated with teenage girls from Compton, demonstrating her willingness to try new things and break stereotypes. Family was central to Tioni's life, especially after her mother's accident. The family structure shifted dramatically when her mother required placement in a rehabilitation facility. Tioni moved in with her father in Compton, maintaining close relationships with her extended family, particularly her cousins who became like siblings. Her cousin Nafisa remembers Tioni as someone who meant something to her mother who can't be here, and who meant something to her cousins who are here. The family unit was tight-knit, protective, and aware of the challenges Tioni faced. What makes her story particularly gut-wrenching is how normal she was. A teenager with dreams, talents, and flaws, As her cousin Nafisa told reporters, "I want to humanize her, because that's what gets lost in cases like these, the humanity of the victim." Tioni wasn't perfect. No teenager is. She had her struggles and made mistakes, but those who knew her best saw her core goodness. They saw a young woman trying to find her way after trauma. They saw someone worth fighting for. "We're going to miss her every single day," her uncle said, words that carry extra weight now that justice remains elusive. The family photos sit in albums. Her school desk was filled by another student. The golf clubs and dance shoes were packed away, but for those who loved her, Tioni remains vibrantly alive in memory. The girl with the infectious laugh who dreamed of healing others. A daughter, a cousin, a student, a friend. A life that mattered. 2019 marked a devastating shift in Tioni's life. One that would set her on a path toward vulnerability and ultimately danger. That year her mother was struck in a catastrophic hit-and-run accident that changed everything for the family. The injuries were so severe that her mother required placement in a specialized rehabilitation facility, unable to care for herself or her daughter. For Tioni, barely a teenager, this wasn't just a family hardship, it was the collapse of her foundation. Overnight, she lost her primary caregiver, her daily stability, and her sense of security. The mother who had guided her through childhood was suddenly absent, fighting for recovery in a medical facility. Tioni moved in with her father, Darian Jackson, in Compton. While he provided a home and cared deeply for his daughter, the transition wasn't smooth. Family members noticed changes in Tioni almost immediately. The once consistently cheerful girl began showing signs of depression and acting out. "She wasn't the same girl I knew since that tragic incident turned her life on its head," her father later told reporters. The trauma manifested in concerning ways, periods where she would disappear for extended times, new and questionable friendships, and a growing distance from the straight-A student she had been. During one of their last conversations, Tioni's pain became heartbreakingly clear. She said, "Daddy, nobody loves me. The only person that loved me was my mama," Jackson recalled. "I said that's not true. I said I love you. She just was crying. I felt her pain."
She just left. So I picked her up, she was crying, I kissed her, gave her a hug. I didn't know it was gonna be the last kiss. So I feel like something was really wrong that night when she came.
You had a feeling?
I begged her to stay. I said, just stay with me. She said, nobody loved me. Because her mom, she's the only person who loved me was my mom. I said, that's not true, I love you.
Her cousin Nafisa Kinsey was candid about these struggles. "We're definitely not pretending that Tioni was an angel. She faced trauma. This acknowledgement wasn't meant to blame Tioni, but to recognize how trauma can reshape a young person's behavior and decision-making." The family watched with growing concern as Tioni began to rebel. They noticed her connecting with older individuals online, particularly on Instagram. She would sometimes leave home without explanation, returning days later without sharing where she'd been. Despite these challenges, those close to Tioni emphasized that these behaviors were symptoms of her pain, not reflections of her character. "I want to humanize her," Nafisa insisted. "I don't want her to be seen as a prostitute or a runaway or somebody that people feel like, oh, well, they live that lifestyle." The family tried to intervene. They sought to provide stability, to remind Tioni of her worth and potential. But the pull of her trauma proved powerful. Without professional support systems in place, Tioni was left to navigate her grief and adjustment largely on her own. This period represents a critical missed opportunity, a moment when additional resources, counseling, or youth services might have changed Tioni's trajectory. Instead, her vulnerability increased, making her a potential target for those who prey on wounded young people. As her cousin Senia put it, "We were always fighting for that kid. We just wanted her to be a teenager. A normal teenager with the chance to heal, grow, and overcome her trauma, a chance Tioni would never get." January 7, 2022, began like many others for 16-year-old Tioni Theus. What no one knew was that the sun would never rise on another day with her alive. That afternoon, Tioni visited her father, Darian Jackson, at his workplace in Inglewood. Something was different about her demeanor. Jackson later described his daughter as appearing depressed and distraught during this visit, a shadow of the vibrant girl she once was. Their conversation turned emotional as Tioni expressed feelings of abandonment and isolation. She said, "Daddy, nobody loves me. The only person that loved me was my mama," Jackson recalled, his voice breaking as he shared these final memories with reporters. "I said that's not true. I said I love you. She just was crying. I felt her pain." As their time together drew to a close, Tioni mentioned plans to meet a friend and attend a party. She didn't provide details about who this friend was or where the party would take place, information that would later haunt her father. Jackson described an overwhelming sense of dread as his daughter prepared to leave. "I had a bad feeling," he said, and begged her to stay with me. Despite his pleas, Tioni was determined to go. In what would become their final moments together, Jackson gave his daughter a hug and a kiss goodbye. "I didn't know it was the last goodbye," he said. 6 words that captured the particular agony of unexpected loss. Tioni walked away, disappearing into the gathering darkness of that January evening. Where exactly she went, who she met, and what transpired over the next several hours remain largely unknown. The gap between her departure from her father's workplace and the discovery of her body the next morning is filled with questions that continue to torment her family and frustrate investigators. Did she actually meet a friend? Did she attend the party she mentioned? Was she lured somewhere under false pretenses? Did she encounter someone she knew or a complete stranger? At what point did the evening turn deadly? These questions hang in the air, unanswered. What we do know is that sometime during those dark hours, someone shot Tioni twice in the neck. Someone decided this teenage girl's life was disposable. Someone treated her body with such disregard that they dumped her on the side of a freeway. And someone knows exactly what happened that night. The morning commute on January 8, 2022 brought an unexpected horror to drivers along the Harbor Freeway in Los Angeles. As cars slowed near the Manchester Avenue on-ramp, motorists spotted what appeared to be a body on the side of the road. Calls flooded into 911 and soon police were on scene confirming what drivers had glimpsed. The body of a teenage girl, discarded like roadside litter. The victim lay on the southbound on-ramp near South Figueroa Street in the Vermont Knolls area. She had been shot twice in the neck, execution style, and abandoned without any attempt to conceal her body. There were no personal belongings, no ID, nothing to immediately identify who this young woman was. The location itself spoke volumes about the killer's mindset. This wasn't a body hidden in the woods or buried in a remote location. This was a public disposal, brazen, callous, and seemingly designed to dehumanize the victim. The message was clear. Her life didn't matter to whoever took it. Because the body was found on state property, the freeway on-ramp jurisdiction fell to the California Highway Patrol rather than the Los Angeles Police Department. CHP officers secured the scene and began the process of identifying the victim and collecting what little evidence existed. By that afternoon, fingerprints confirmed what would devastate a family. The body was that of 16-year-old Tioni Theus, reported missing by her father when she failed to return home the previous night. The notification process that followed was brutal. "We have so many questions. Everybody is so in disbelief," said Tioni's cousin Rashida Kinsey in the days following the discovery. The family's grief was compounded by the manner of her death, not just murdered, but discarded, dumped on the freeway like nothing, her father said through tears. "That just broke me down. It hurt me. It's like who could be so cold like that?" The investigation immediately faced significant challenges. There were no known witnesses to either the murder or the dumping of Tioni's body. The freeway location meant no security cameras captured the crime. Forensic evidence was minimal. Investigators had little to go on beyond the victim's identity and cause of death. CHP investigators began the painstaking process of retracing Tioni's final hours. Who had she been with? Where had she gone after leaving her father? Had she actually attended a party as planned? The answers weren't forthcoming. Captain Jeff Lofton of the CHP made public appeals. "If you're from the community here and you have cameras in your vehicle, and you were driving along the 110 freeway that morning, please look at your video. If you find something at Manchester and the 110, call investigators. But days turned into weeks with no significant leads or arrests. If you're watching this and feeling the outrage we feel, hit that like button and comment "Justice for Tioni" below. Better yet, share this video. Because someone out there knows something, someone saw something, someone heard something, and Tioni's family deserves answers. As her cousin Nafisa powerfully stated, "It's my cousin today, but it could be your cousin, your daughter, your friend tomorrow." This isn't just another sad story, it's a call to action for a community to protect its young people. And as the investigation stalled, another disturbing aspect of Tioni's case began to emerge, one that would raise serious questions about how society values certain victims over others. As days passed with no arrests in Tioni's case, a disturbing pattern emerged that her family couldn't ignore. Just 5 days after Tioni's body was discovered, another tragic murder occurred in Los Angeles. Brianna Kupfer, a 24-year-old white woman and UCLA graduate student, was fatally stabbed while working at a furniture store in Hancock Park. Both cases were horrific. Both victims were young women with promising futures. Both deserved justice, but the response to each case couldn't have been more different. Within days of Kupfer's murder, a massive reward of $250,000 was established for information leading to her killer. Her case dominated local news headlines and quickly spread to national media outlets. Police released surveillance footage, detailed descriptions, and frequent updates. Meanwhile, Tioni's case received minimal coverage. No reward was initially offered. No press conferences were called. No national headlines emerged about the black teenager discarded on a freeway ramp. The disparity was so glaring that community activists mobilized. Najee Ali of Operation Hope spoke out. "It's important that Governor Newsom and state-elected officials realize that Tioni Theus' life mattered. The fact that someone could shoot and kill a young woman and dump her body on the side of the freeway like she was trash is outrageous." It wasn't until nearly 3 weeks after her murder, and only after significant community pressure, that authorities announced a reward in Tioni's case. Governor Gavin Newsom approved $50,000, the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors added $10,000, and the Los Angeles City Council proposed an additional $50,000. Operation Hope contributed $5,000, bringing the total to $115,000. Still less than half of what was immediately offered in Kupfer's case. Los Angeles County Supervisor Holly Mitchell directly addressed this inequality. Time and time again, missing and victimized black women and girls are overlooked and lack the appropriate media attention in comparison to their counterparts. She added, "It is imperative that we not allow implicit bias or the adultification of black girls to continue to influence the lack of media coverage or public outrage over their murders." The statistics back up Mitchell's concerns. According to data she cited, cases involving black victims are 4 times more likely to go unsolved. This phenomenon has a name in criminology circles, missing white woman syndrome, describing the disproportionate media coverage given to missing or murdered white women compared to women of color. For Tioni's family, this wasn't an abstract concept, but a painful reality they were living. They watched as another family's tragedy received immediate attention while they had to fight just to get authorities to acknowledge their loss deserved equal resources. Let's speak up. Let's stand up for one another. Talk for those who can't. Save the next child's life, urged Tioni's cousin Rashida Kinsey. It could be your child, it could be your cousin. The disparity raises uncomfortable questions about whose lives we value as a society, and whose deaths we deem worthy of our collective outrage and resources. It forces us to confront the reality that even in death, race and socioeconomic status can determine how vigorously justice is pursued. Nearly 3 weeks after Tioni's murder, Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon held a press conference that added a disturbing new dimension to the case. "We need the public's help," Gascon stated. There is evidence indicating that Tioni might have been the victim of human trafficking. This revelation shocked many but confirmed what some family members had feared. According to Gascon, court records indicated the teen had been identified as a C-sex victim, commercial sexual exploitation of children, a term used for minors forced into sex trafficking. The family's perspective on this angle was complex and divided. Some relatives believed that after her mother's accident, Tioni had become vulnerable to manipulation. Her cousin Nafisa Kinsey told the Los Angeles Times that Tioni met a man in his 20s through Instagram who pulled her into sex trafficking and theft. Other family members were more hesitant to embrace this narrative. Tioni's cousin Senia pushed back. "I'm not going to make it and say my baby was perfect, but not horrible either. She was taken away too soon. We were always fighting for that kid. We just wanted her to be a teenager." This division reflects the complex reality of trafficking cases, where victims are often misunderstood and sometimes blamed for their exploitation. Tiffany Blacknail from the District Attorney's Office emphasized this point. Children cannot consent to sex work. Tioni was a child. Her life mattered. The statistics surrounding trafficking paint a disturbing picture of who is most vulnerable. According to FBI data, 40% of sex trafficking victims are identified as black women, despite black women making up only about 7% of the U.S. population. This stark disproportion points to systemic issues that leave young black girls particularly vulnerable. Experts in trafficking explain that predators specifically target young people who have experienced trauma. The sudden loss of Tioni's mother to catastrophic injury created exactly the kind of vulnerability that traffickers exploit. They look for emotional wounds they can manipulate, offering what appears to be love, attention, and understanding. Traffickers are master manipulators, explains trafficking expert Rachel Thomas. They identify needs that aren't being met, emotional needs, financial needs, a sense of belonging, and position themselves as the solution. The grooming process often begins on social media platforms like Instagram, where traffickers can easily contact potential victims, assess their vulnerabilities through their posts, and begin building trust. For a grieving teenager like Tioni, an older man showing interest and offering emotional support would be particularly effective bait. Once trust is established, the relationship gradually shifts. Isolation from family and friends increases. Small requests escalate to demands. By the time the victim realizes what's happening, they're often trapped in a cycle of manipulation, fear, and sometimes drug dependency. If Tioni was indeed being trafficked, her murder takes on additional layers of tragedy. It represents not just the loss of a young life, but a profound failure of systems designed to protect vulnerable youth from exploitation. It raises questions about what warning signs might have been missed and what interventions could have saved her. Most importantly, it reminds us that behind statistics are real young people with dreams, families, and futures who deserve protection. 3 years have passed since Tioni's body was found, and her killer still walks free. Despite the $115,000 reward finally established for information, no arrests have been made. The case remains open, but has gone cold. On the 1-year anniversary of her death, Tioni's family gathered at the spot where she was found. "If they're watching, they can just turn themselves in," pleaded a family member. Or, "If someone knows something, what if it was your family member? This was someone's child." The community hasn't forgotten. South LA activists continue to highlight how nearly half of homicides in their area go unsolved, calling for increased funding for DNA technology and cold case resources. "This is one thing that I would never put on the worst of the enemy," said a relative during a press conference.
"This is one thing that I would never put on the worst of the enemies."
The pain hasn't diminished, the questions haven't been answered. If you've made it this far, I'm asking you directly, subscribe to our channel now and share this video. Someone knows what happened to Tioni. Someone has the missing piece that could bring her family closure. Tioni's great-uncle Michael Dolphin's words at her funeral still echo. "We want you to think about her every single day. Please, don't let her be forgotten. We won't forget, we won't stop asking questions, and we won't stop fighting for justice for for Tioni Theus.